Top 5 dumbbell hacks. Number 1, practice. Be relentless. Don't be put off if you fail or things aren't going well. Just keep practicing. So obviously this principle carries over to all kinds of training, but with dumbbell, it seems like it's an important thing to remind people, because people just assume that getting better at log and axle and getting stronger in their upper body is just really going to transfer really, really well to the dumbbell, whereas actually you need to specifically practice it. So number 2, so link to number 1, like what should you be aiming for in terms of your practice? So let's put an objective measure to this. So number 2, we'll use the magic ratio, which is 62% of your log. So assuming that you know what your max log is approximately, let's say 62% of that is a reasonable target for you to be hitting on the dumbbell. So much less than that, you've obviously got a technique deficit, and you just need to practice your technique on the dumbbell without spending any time getting stronger. If your ratio is above that, like somebody like myself, I could probably back off the dumbbell a little bit in terms of technique and skill and focus on actually getting stronger, and that'll give me a better return on getting better at my overhead lifting holistically. So I'll go back to log and get improving on that. So number 3, perfect the bar path. So a good little hack for this is get used to videoing from the front, and look for, like, imagine there's a center line through the center of mass and through the middle of your body, and aim to achieve this on. Use this as your measure to every freeze frame at every part of the lift. You should be looking to keep the dumbbell through that center line. So again, if you look at your videos, and the further it goes to the left or the right, the more energy expenditure it's costing you to lift that given weight. So the better you get technically at keeping the dumbbell close to that center line throughout the lift, throughout the clean, the rack position, the dip, the drive, the overhead position, it should all be freeze framed down this center line, and you should be able to draw a straight line through where your hand is, through the middle of the dumbbell, and it should be in the middle of your feet. You get close to this line, I promise that you'll get better at dumbbell. So number 4, use appropriate strength exercises. So again, like, a big thing that I see is people getting stronger in the triceps, stronger in the shoulders. It's all great, and I wouldn't discontinue doing that stuff, but I would prioritize stuff such as squats, specifically squats where you're keeping your torso vertical, and such as high bar squats are going to be more relevant than front squats, because you've got the weight, you're getting used to the weight in the same position that the dumbbell is in terms of the rack. I would recommend doing specific dips with the dumbbell in that rack position. So basically just almost like a fifth squat, and just practicing with the dumbbell in the rack position, and just controlling the dip on the way down and on the way up, and making sure that your elbow's not wanting to move. If your elbow's wanting to move, you're obviously not controlling the torso appropriately in terms of what you're doing with the legs to guide where the torso goes. So again, this links into number 3, where you're perfecting the bar path, but actually getting your legs stronger in that position will help too. Another exercise that I'm a real big fan of is behind the neck press. So behind the neck push press, I wouldn't go. I think you're going to get more value out of going out of practicing whatever your max dumbbell is. Practice it in the kind of the behind the neck press position, and get better at controlling that weight, rather than going heavier than, because most of you will be able to go heavier than what you do on the dumbbell. Like, actually, just if your PB is 80 on the dumbbell, just practice with 70 to 80 kilos on the behind the neck press, and you'll be able to get some good volume, and you might be able to get some 3s, some 5s. And you'll be able to practice the cues that I promote in the Dumbbell Masterclass about keeping the arms relaxed and actually focusing on relying on the lower body to control the torso appropriately, to keep the position, to keep the bar path optimal, rather than actually tensing up in the upper body to guide the weight. And you're just going to be able to reinforce this, and it's just going to almost be like a light bulb moment when you do the behind the neck press, because you're going to understand these principles that I talk about in a lot better context. So another exercise that I'd recommend, if you can get a yoke light enough, would be jerk recoveries, single arm jerk recoveries, and you can just practice that the top bit of basically standing up after you've done a power jerk or a split jerk. If you're a push presser on the dumbbell, again, you can practice instead of doing the jerk recovery on the yoke, you can actually practice doing just basically the lockout, and just focus on using it as a specific triceps exercise to press out with the weight from the position. Basically, you're replicating the position that you'll be when you finishing the drive on the dumbbell, where you have to either drop in and receive into a jerk, or you have to finish with the triceps. So I'm not going to try and tell you which way to go, but this can actually be a good little test of whether you are more suited to, if you're really strong and you find it easier to press out, then great. If you're really well balanced with the lower body and you find it easier to rebend the knee and receive the body in that overhead position, then great. This is a good little test to see whether to see which is more suitable. So try it as a little test. So number 5, practice floor to overhead. I see people repping from the shoulders, which is great because you're practicing. But if you want to optimize your time spent practicing, I would, especially when there's a skill deficit and when you're below that 0.6 or the 62% that I mentioned earlier, then you don't need to get stronger. So you don't need to accumulate that eccentric fatigue or that fatigue that you're getting from lowering the weight. So basically, I'm just saying get it overhead and then get a setup. Use an MST drop pad. They're the best drop pads that I've ever used, or a lower budget sofa cushion or a tire, something where you can basically get it to overhead and then drop it and in a safe way where the impact's absorbed. So you're going to be able to accumulate a lot more work and a lot more practice with this method than you are repping from the shoulders. And also, as well, you will notice that as you're lifting heavier weights, so say, for instance, like for me, like 80% of my max repping from the shoulders is really tough. It's really heavy. Whereas actually, if I just get it overhead and then drop the weight and then reset, I can accumulate a lot of volume in any given session and a lot of specific practice at relatively high weights without accumulating that upper body fatigue. You don't want to be held back by the upper body fatigue. So give these 5 principles a go, and then if you'd like to move on to the Dumbbell Masterclass and go into a bit more depth, then sign up to the Dumbbell Masterclass and work through it at your own pace. If you'd like a little bit more in-depth coaching, a bit more personal coaching, just message me and we'll look at getting you set up with some personal coaching.